Let's be honest, if you've ever typed fat loss into YouTube, you know it's overwhelming. It's like trying to drink from a fire hose of confusing and often conflicting information. But you know what? A few key videos have really risen above the noise and just completely dominated the conversation.
And when I say dominated, I'm not kidding. The top videos on this one topic, they've racked up a combined total of over 42 million views. That is an absolutely massive number of people, all looking for the same thing: answers that actually work.
But that got us thinking. Does a giant view count automatically mean it's the best, most practical advice? Is that really the best way to measure what helps people? Or is there a better way to figure out what's truly valuable?
So instead of just chasing the views, we decided to go a level deeper. We dove into thousands of the most engaged viewer comments to see what advice really clicked with people. You know, what they found useful, what they criticized, and what they had questions about. Basically, we let the audience tell us what was best.
Our deep dive pointed us to 5 absolute titans in this space. And what's so interesting is that each one of them comes at this from a totally different angle. And believe me, their audiences had a lot to say.
So we're looking at 5 distinct philosophies here. You've got Jeff Nippard's super science-backed approach, Andrew Huberman going deep on the neuroscience, Jeremy Ethier, who's amazing for beginners, Mike Diamonds with these structured long-term plans, and Dr. Berg, who looks at everything through a hormonal lens. So the big question is, which approach did viewers find the most useful in the real world?
All right, let's get into it. It's time for the countdown. We're going to break down the top 3 today. And just remember, this entire ranking is built from the ground up using viewer comments. This isn't our opinion. This is the audience's verdict. Kicking things off at number 3 is Jeremy Ethier. What viewers absolutely loved about his video was how incredibly clear and practical it was, especially for people who are just starting out and need a solid game plan.
And wow, the numbers really back that up. We're talking 11 million views and a really strong 46.3% positive sentiment score from our comment analysis. It's pretty clear his message hit home with a massive audience that was just looking for a simple place to start.
So what was the secret sauce? Viewers kept pointing to how actionable his tips were. He boiled it down to 3 simple shifts. First, eat more minimally processed foods. It actually helps you burn more calories just through digestion. Pretty cool, right? Second, try to front-load your calories earlier in the day to stop those late-night cravings. And third, pick foods that keep you full, like oats and potatoes. Simple, effective, stuff you can start doing like tomorrow.
But there's always a but, right? Here's the other side of the coin. The number 1 piece of feedback, and we saw this a lot, was about his sample meal plan. While it was super healthy, people felt it was just not realistic for a normal, busy life. As this commenter put it, cooking salmon and asparagus for lunch on a Tuesday, it just wasn't practical for someone with a 9-to-5. People were begging for more grab-and-go options.
All right, sliding into the number 2 spot is neuroscientist Andrew Huberman. And he took a completely different approach. He focused on these fascinating science-backed tools that use your own nervous system to speed up fat loss. Now, his video got a slightly higher positive sentiment score, 47.6%. What this tells us is that even though the audience was a bit smaller, the people who watched it were seriously impressed by the sheer depth of the information.
Huberman's takeaways were so unique, and you could tell from the comments that people were fascinated. He talked about stuff like NEAT. That's basically all the calories you burn from fidgeting or pacing around. He also explained how getting into the cold enough to actually shiver can activate your brown fat, and how high-intensity training can keep your metabolism fired up long after you leave the gym. For a lot of people, these were totally new ideas.
The main critique, though? The density. The video is almost 2 hours long. And this comment just nails it perfectly. Viewers were blown away by the science, but they were also desperate for someone to just sum it all up. They wanted a step-by-step plan they could use without needing to sit through a whole university lecture.
And that brings us to our number 1 spot, crowned by the audience as the most valuable of them all, Jeff Nippard. He just managed to find this perfect sweet spot that viewers were obviously hungry for.
So why did he take the top spot? Well, after digging through the comments, it really came down to 3 things. First, he brought in multiple experts, PhDs, which gave everything this incredible layer of credibility. Second, he's just a master at taking complicated science and making it easy to understand. And third, viewers loved his balanced view. He's always quick to say, hey, different things work for different people.
You know, this comment really says it all. It shows just how much trust he built with his audience. The biggest request wasn't a complaint, it was a plea for more. Viewers like this person wanted him to take his clear, science-first approach and apply it to their specific situations, like what happens to fat loss as we get older. That's a huge sign that people didn't just watch his video, they bought into his philosophy.
So what do you get when you pull together all this amazing feedback? We took the most praised advice and the biggest viewer requests and synthesized them into one unified toolkit. This is basically the dream video that the audience was asking for piece by piece.
Okay, first things first. A massive point of confusion across all the comments was separating the must-haves from the nice-to-haves. So here it is crystal clear. On the left, the non-negotiables, the core principles everyone agreed on: a calorie deficit, enough protein, some resistance training, and getting your daily steps in. On the right, the optional extras, things like cold exposure or specific supplements. They can help, but they are not the foundation. This is the foundation.
The single most asked question was, what do I do when I get stuck? Well, this flowchart is the answer, built directly from what viewers wanted. Step 1. If you're stuck for 2 weeks, make a tiny change. Either add a few thousand steps or cut about 100 calories. Still stuck? Move to Step 2. Be brutally honest about your sleep and stress levels. If that's not it, then you can look at adjusting cardio. And the final step? Maybe it's time for a strategic diet break. See? Simple, logical steps.
So after this whole deep dive into what thousands of viewers think, what's the big takeaway here?
Well, it really all comes down to this one question. When you filter out all the hype and just listen to the collective wisdom of thousands of people actually doing this stuff, what does the perfect strategy look like? It looks like a plan that's grounded in science, sure, but it's also practical, it's flexible, and it's super clear about what really moves the needle.
Now, if you're a data nerd like me and want to see how we put all this together, you can find the complete report over on Shono-Insights. We've got the full breakdown on all 5 creators, all the sentiment metrics, and even the raw comment data that we used for this entire analysis. It's all there for you. Thanks for tuning in.